All right.
Okay, I hope we are live. Had a couple problems, but we have a recording regardless, and if folks are interested in watching the recording, we can get it to them.
Very good.
Well, Aaron, it is 12:30. I know people are still like kind of trickling in. Everybody in the audience, tell us where you're joining us from. It's always exciting to know where everyone is, watching their Zoom screens from. But I think we can get ready when you are ready, Aaron.
Well, very good. Well, thank you, Christina, and everyone. Welcome. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. This is our effort to do education and outreach with our members and the general public about issues that are important to family farming, to sustainable agriculture, and to our rural communities. And we are so glad to be joined by Chris Hall today of the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to join.
We're going to have a great conversation in just a moment about all things rural internet with Chris. But before we do that, let's get a quick update on an item or two about the Iowa Farmers Union. Christina.
Yeah, so I only have one thing for you all. We're working to schedule out our lunch and learns for the month of January and February. If you have ideas, please let us know. We love it when you guys send in ideas. But next week, this time, so I think that's January 11th, I'm pretty sure, next Thursday, 12:30 to 1, Laura Bellin is joining us. She's joined us in the past. It's always a really great discussion. She is the founder, I think, and contributor to Bleeding Heartland. So she's a journalist and political commentator. She'll kind of look back at 2023 and then also make some predictions, for 2024, where the state house is going, all of that good stuff. Send in your questions ahead of time if you want to, because those, it's always a busy discussion and we want to make sure we get to, all of that good stuff. Aaron, that's everything that I have.
Well, great. I wanted to let people know that the end of the year fundraising campaign for the Iowa Farmers Union, our 30,000 in 30 days campaign, is just wrapping up, and we are having a wonderful success with that program. If you haven't had a chance to send in your pledges today, please do so. And if you haven't had a chance at the end of the year to make that pledge, it's not too late. So go ahead and make your pledge to the Iowa Farmers Union, make your donation to the Iowa Farmers Union. We know that we can only survive by working together, and our kind, generous folks in the Iowa Farmers Union community have really stepped up, and it's a really wonderful opportunity to increase the outreach and the effectiveness of our organization. So thank you for giving to the Iowa Farmers Union. I want to also just remind people that our trivia question this morning asked about the state of Iowa. On December 28th, Iowa celebrated a birthday. How old is this state? And we had a couple guesses in our chat, and I see we had one correct guess. 177 years. We celebrated 177 years on December 28th, just before the beginning of the new year. So that's our trivia question for today. But our topic for today, we're going to jump right in. We're talking about all things with rural internet access and Iowa and investments in rural internet access with Chris Hall. Chris is joining us from the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, where he joined that team in December of 2022 as the federal program officer for the state of Iowa. He coordinates partnerships and outreach with state and local government, community organizations, and industries with a vested interest in those high-speed internet grant programs. But you may know Chris from his previous work. He served 6 terms in the Iowa House of Representatives representing Sioux City, and he also spent some time working with Western Iowa Tech Community College. We are so glad that he's talking with us today because the administration announced historic investments in our nation's infrastructure, including more than $450 million to expand access to high-speed internet here in Iowa. So we're going to get an in-depth look at these programs today and why they are so important for rural Iowa and for our family farmers around the state. So thank you, Chris, for being with us today. It's a real privilege to talk to you about this important effort.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Thanks to Aaron and Christina both for the invitation to join you today. Thank you for taking time out of your day, and Happy New Year to everybody who's listening. Aaron, can you give me a thumbs up? Are my slides up on screen? There
They
we
are,
go.
yes, we're ready to go.
Okie doke. Well, what Aaron mentioned is true. I think that especially in the last several years, we've really realized what great value and importance access to technology and information has for each and every family, for every business in the country, especially in a lot of business like agriculture. There's, in rural communities, a lot that can be gained if you have solid, reliable access to the internet and high-speed internet that can benefit your daily life. Just 1 second. Just about 6 weeks ago, we celebrated the 2-year anniversary of passage of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was passed in November of 2021, and 1 year later, the Biden and Harris administration launched the Internet for All initiative. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was truly that. It was a bipartisan effort authorized by members of both parties in Congress and here in Iowa supported by members of our delegation that are both Republican and Democrat. The Internet for All initiative stems from that. In the big umbrella of infrastructure programs, you have things like road and bridge funding, you have water and sewer infrastructure, and you also have broadband and high-speed internet. The Internet for All initiative aims to connect every house, every corner of the country in order to enable working families both to afford service and to ensure that everyone has the digital skills to utilize service once it exists at their doorstep. Now, accessing the internet really comes in a few different forms. Clearly, one of the easiest to understand is having that internet available at your doorstep, whether that's a cable that runs into your home and you plug a modem into it, whether it's fiber infrastructure that has been trenched and delivered down your road that comes to your doorstep, or perhaps a tower that has been built nearby and beams a signal into your home. The goal is to build infrastructure that provides reliable and high-speed access to all Americans in a durable form that will last for the future. There are other components of this program that are aimed at making sure it's also affordable, so that if internet comes to your doorstep, it's something that you can manage in your monthly and annual budget. And it's about making sure that everybody has the skills to actually use the internet. We know that sometimes if you're trying to apply for a job, if you're trying to pay your bills or your mortgage, a lot of different companies have actually dated it so that you're not able to do so through the mail or in a paper copy anymore. Some people may need the ability to pay bills online, to learn those digital skills, to learn how to apply for a job, sometimes even something so basic as how do you use a mouse and keyboard. So these programs are built at basically getting the infrastructure delivered to every corner of the country, and also making sure that everybody has the digital skills to use the internet once it exists. Those two programs are here on the right-hand side in bold type: the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program, which is $42+ billion, and the Digital Equity Grant, which is around $2.75 billion. The state of Iowa has received both of those grants, and so has every state and territory in the union. Throughout the last year, each state and territory has been going through a planning process, using some of those initial funds to really tailor the program to their unique needs. what's good for Iowa, what makes sense for us here in this state may not be true for one of our neighboring states. Each of us has a different geographic landscape. We have different communities of different sizes. We also have different economies. And so making sure that each state is a planning process where they have to first learn about what they currently have, then tailor their planning process to a good idea, something that will work over the next 4 to 5 years in a deliberate and methodological form to build out internet. And then also make sure that it is really respectful of how you use taxpayer dollars, making sure that there's accountability, that these dollars are well spent, and that they have monitoring and oversight in place. The goal of these programs is also to create a fuller participation in society and to make sure that everybody has equal access to the skills to participate in digital equity and these society functions. That means accessing it for educational opportunities, making sure that we're connected to each other in civic and social ways, utilizing connectivity for telehealth and advancing healthcare into rural corners of the country, and also making sure that businesses have access to a digital storefront, the digital economy, and that people that may be interested in telework have the reliable internet at their home to do so. Between March and May of last year, the state and federal government here in Iowa participated in a series of 55 public town halls. You can see on your screen, each of those blue dots was a location in the state where a town hall was held. And throughout those town halls, we heard that many Iowans see the internet like other utilities. They see it similar to electricity. They see it similar to trash service and water. It's become such a central part of our daily life, and so many other assets actually tail off of connection to the internet that you end up needing it in a similar form. Iowa has a mature broadband office. To date, the state of Iowa has already put 8 rounds of funding into the field. That has happened through what is called a Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA. And so on this screen, you can see that it is a combination of state and federal funds that have gone out the door thus far through 8 rounds of funding. Those rounds of funding are also shown here on the map. Another round has since gone out, and so there are some updates to this map that will eventually be made. But you can see that there's been a broad investment throughout the state, a combination of state and federal funds and different programs that are really trying to tackle the issue of connection. You can also see that the federal funding stream is fairly robust. It's varied across different federal agencies, such as mine in the U.S. Department of Commerce. There are also programs that exist within USDA rural development, where a smaller community in a rural part of the state is able to apply for a grant directly to USDA. And there are other programs that were born out of pandemic relief, where county boards of supervisors and local governments also had an opportunity to potentially use federal funds and partner with a local internet provider. The round of funding that is on the horizon, NOFA 9, is called the BEAD program, and that's the one that my agency administers. It is the largest to date, and it will include $415 million that will be provided to the state of Iowa to connect every single one of those existing locations that don't have a connection today. Where are those locations? Where do they remain? The truth is, they remain in every one of our 99 counties here in Iowa. Iowa has approximately 80 to 85,000 unserved locations, meaning they have no reliable internet. Here on this map, they are shown as a blue dot. And so when I switch back to this screen, you can kind of see where investments have been made to improve connection. And it's almost a mirror image of this screen where you can see where a lot of those locations still remain, the dense blue areas. The areas that appear as black are really a collection of urban locations. And so if you were to zoom in on them, they would be a little bit less aggregated. You could see better location by location, house by house, where connection does or does not exist. But at a high level, these blue areas are likely good candidates for future funding. And across the state, each one of the 99 counties is likely to receive some share of that $415 million, and it will be predominantly in rural parts of the state. So the importance of high-speed internet, as I mentioned, is ensuring access to education, stimulating growth in the economy, lowering costs for healthcare, and strengthening ties in our community, allowing people to listen into a school board meeting, participate in a city council meeting, pay their bills, apply for jobs, or I know during that town hall series, we heard a lot of small communities that are tinkering with very creative ideas. It could be setting up a telehealth facility in their community health center or in a library. Could also be allowing for digital device rental at their local library or some sort of a town hall. There are a lot of really creative ideas that are going to be born from this, but the guarantee is that within 5 years' time, each of those 80 to 85,000 locations in Iowa that currently don't have service will have service. The places that currently have service that may not be especially reliable will be improved, we hope. And we're hoping to also make sure that there's an affordable entry point so that every family with access at their doorstep can actually accommodate that within their budget. So that's a very high-level overview. I'm glad to take questions. It's really been a great partnership so far between the state and federal government. And where we are on the timeline of things is mostly wrapping up with the planning phase. And in the coming months, later in the spring or early summer is likely where you'll start to hear more news about actual projects and applications and people who are looking to say, I'm an internet provider, I'm partnering with my county or my city, we're working on a project that would help connect this set of locations. That's coming in the near future, and it's going to be a very exciting phase of our project.
Well, very good. Well, we had a number of questions that people are asking, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. In the meantime, if folks who, if you haven't had a chance to, put your question in the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many as we can. And we know that this is just the start of this conversation, but let's jump in, Chris, on a couple of items. We had one person ask about the chart about the different funding investments that have been made already. You mentioned that some are state, some are federal. What like those different investments mean as far as the color chart goes? We had a question to ask about that.
Yep, and I believe this is probably the chart that was being referred to. So I mentioned that there are 8 different rounds of funding that have gone out the door.
Right.
NOFA 1, 2, 4, and 6 were made with state funding. NOFAs 3, 5, 7, and 8 utilized federal funding. And each of those different rounds of funding appear on the map in a different color. And so that's just, it's a map that comes from the state broadband office. It shows and kind of differentiates so you can see which rounds of funding may have been reaching a certain area of the state. It's really just kind of a handy way to visualize where those different rounds of funding have gone and to be able to see that these 8 rounds of funding have bit by bit tackled the problem of connectivity.
And we noticed that while we're looking at this slide, that the amount of new investment in this latest funding is incredibly big. It's almost 50% over what we've already invested in the past 5 or 6 years. It's a tremendous amount of investment.
It is. It's also worth noting that this is really gaining a lot of steam in a short amount of time. All of this funding has occurred since 2018. So we're really talking both at a state and federal level about significant funding over the last 5 years. And this most recent one, the largest amount so far, will really be going out into the field probably in 2025 and 2026. So momentum's underway, but it's going to continue to snowball and gain steam, and hopefully people will really feel the results.
Sure. Well, we have a couple of people asking, how does this impact my local community? If people are wondering, how does this happen in my county or in my city? How do they get involved so that they know how they can have the greatest impact for their community? Are they going to their local elected officials, or are they going to their local provider?
It's good to be in touch with those people. You know, each of these grants on the screen that you see is likely being received and put out into the field by whoever you know as your local internet provider. You know, in rural areas of the state, it's often one of our incumbent telephone companies. They have received and applied for a lot of these grants, and they're very familiar to most of those internet providers. Here in Iowa, we're very fortunate to see that a lot of Iowa-based companies, the smaller companies that exist at a community level, that have a good record of customer service and likely know you at a neighborly level. Those are a lot of the different companies that are also applying for these grants. So if you do have a relationship there, or if you have a relationship with your county board or your city council, you can be talking with them about making sure that there is a plan, that they know which locations in their backyard are identified as unserved or underserved. So the locations that are eligible to receive this funding, and then coordinating from local government and also from those internet providers to make sure that when these application rounds become available, somebody is applying for them. This program is unique compared to the previous ones in that previous rounds, it was really about getting dollars out the door in the most effective and cost-effective form. This program will remain cost-effective, but there is a guarantee that every single one of these locations has to be served by the end of the program. So we have a known amount of funding, a finite number of dollars at $415 million. And we have to problem solve and figure out how to make every one of those dollars count and reach every single one of those 80,000 locations roughly in the state. And so getting those dollars out the door is going to be a coordination and really collective problem solving effort.
So it's not just going to the easiest places to serve in the community, it's getting to all places in the community. And that seems like a real commitment, which is important.
It is. And here in Iowa, having already put some dollars out the door and having gone through several rounds of funding, we've already probably picked most of the low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And the locations that remain, these 80,000 locations across the state that remain, these are going to be some of the toughest. They could be some of the most expensive locations to reach. And so we need to make sure that there is good line of communication, that people are excited and working with both the internet providers and local and state government. That's certainly a strong part of what I'm currently doing, just coordinating and making sure that people are aware of the program so that we can make it go as smoothly as possible. But you know, whether it's the Luss Hills or some of that driftless area in the northeast corner of the state, there are some tough geographies, and a lot of the locations that remain might be in those river valleys or the hilly parts of the state that are pretty tough to reach.
Right. And if people have questions about this program and how it's reaching out to their local communities, their local governments, is it appropriate for folks to share the information you've shared today? What's a good way for people to reach out to you if they need you, Chris?
That'd be absolutely appropriate. The more people know, the better this information is shared, the better prepared we'll be. If anyone would like for me to give a presentation similar as this to either their city council or their county board, if you have a group that you'd like for me to visit with, I'd be more than happy. And my email address is chall, CHALL, at NTIA.gov. We'll make sure that information is available to everybody, but if you'd like to reach out, I'd be more than happy to visit with you on an individual or group basis and try to share this.
You know, our farmers often share, you know, that when the nation was becoming electrified, we had to make a priority to make sure that rural areas of our country were not left behind. And certainly that took a huge community and nationwide investment to make that happen, so that our rural communities were not left behind. Well, that's the same is happening now, right? Where it's going to take a huge investment in order to make sure that we all have access in our rural areas, and the rural areas that won't get left behind when we are bringing broadband to our country.
That's absolutely right. We've at these town halls held last year and in conversation with, different organizations, different farm groups, um, that parallel is often drawn. This is really the next century rural electrification. It's a similar effort where there's a huge coordination taking place between the Biden administration, the federal government, and your state government, trying to make sure that we do this in a thoughtful manner, a way that works individually for each state so that they're really in the driver's seat and tailoring it to their needs.
And this is, the Farmers Union is very proud of our efforts to advocate for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, because this was going to bring real investments to rural Iowa. So we feel strongly it was important for us to speak up and advocate for these programs that can bring access to rural Iowa to broadband. You mentioned that this is an ongoing effort. Remind us of the timeline of how this is happening.
Yeah, it is an ongoing effort. As I mentioned, they just completed their first year of the grant, which is a very deliberate planning effort. There's a lot of coordination. There's a need for them to be facilitating public input, public comment periods in town halls. And moving forward, our agency will be looking at the plans they've designed, adjusting them and improving them if needed over the next month or two. And then probably the second quarter of this year, late spring to early summer, is where you'll start to hear that the next phase of the program, the actual implementation, is starting to gear up. And that will involve an opportunity for the public to look at a map and say, I see that my house, my business is on this map and it is correctly identified. My house is eligible for funding, or I believe that I could, receive better connection. So there's a chance for the public to say, yes, this looks right, or no, I think that my house should be included in a different way. And from there, once the map is agreed to, we will start putting funds out the door. We'll open a round of application. We'll see what internet providers actually want to bid on certain locations. And by the end of this year, by roughly December 2024, we will have an agreed to plan. Those dollars will start going out the door. Construction will start in 2025 and 2026. And it's going to probably take a couple of years, just considering the scale of the program, but it'll be an exciting time. One thing I want to mention there also is not only are the dollars going, we hope, to a lot of small companies that exist in the rural corners of the state, but the infrastructure law was designed to be both infrastructure and jobs program. So as these dollars begin to go out the door in 2025 and 2026, Iowa's likely to see new construction jobs, new freight and manufacturing jobs that also start to gear up to provide the supply chain. Over 90% of the products used, whether it's the fiber or the conduit or the connection boxes, 90+% of the actual manufactured goods in this program will be made in America, which is also very exciting.
Well, it's exciting for us too. We know so many young and beginning farmers trying to make the transition back to the farm will only be able to make that decision if they know that their farm and their family and their family's businesses, side businesses, and their education opportunities are going to be there when they come back to the farm. So
Yeah.
it's a huge decision-making decision, a real change for people when we're trying to decide how to make it work back on the farm.
We want to make sure that all of those doors of opportunity remain open, whether it's, one person in the household choosing to telework or start a small business, or know that they've got a community hospital that is well hooked up and their kids at school have all of the same opportunities as the kids in a city. That's very important and all interwoven into this program. It's going to be neat to see it as it unfolds.
Well, Chris, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing with us, and we know that people will be in touch on how these investments can make the biggest bang on their farm and in their rural community. So thank you so much.
Thanks again for the invitation. I really enjoyed it.
Well, everyone, this has been the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. We are so grateful for our guest, Chris Hall, today. We are so grateful for your support of the Iowa Farmers Union. If you haven't had a chance to sign up as a member or donate to our end of 2023 giving program, it's not too late. Sign up today. We know that we can make the biggest difference when we all work together. So thanks again for all your support, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday on our Lunch and Learn, where our special guest will be Laura Bellin from Bleeding Heartland. So we'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Thanks again, Christina. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day, everyone.